Hello, welcome back to 14ers 101, your guide to getting ready for hiking your first 14er. I'm Leigh, and in this video, we'll start looking at gear. If you're watching this, you're probably wondering what items you should be taking on a 14er hike, or maybe whether the gear you have will work. As a beginner, it can be hard to trust yourself to make the right choices about what to take with you on a challenging hike. You might see these high-profile hikers on Instagram and TikTok who have the newest high-tech and ultralight gear and feel like that's the stuff you're supposed to have to be successful. Or maybe you're one of those people who throws some snacks and a water bottle in your pockets and calls it good. I'm here to tell you that you don't need to go out and buy a whole new set of equipment in order to do a 14er. You likely have access to clothing and equipment that will be good enough to get the job done. But I'm also going to tell you that you really should carry enough gear to keep you safe, and that might look a little bit different on a 14er than on your average day hike. When you head out on the trail, you may notice that there are a lot of people who don't carry everything that I'm going to recommend. This is usually for one of two reasons. Either they're very experienced and have made conscious decisions about what to leave behind based on their objective for the day and their confidence in their ability to accomplish that goal, or they're a novice who just doesn't know any better. The goal of these gear videos will be to equip you with the knowledge to make a conscious decision about what you do and don't bring, and to evaluate the potential consequences, big or small, of having or not having that item. I also hope to give you confidence in assessing the clothing and equipment you may already have on hand to see if it'll be good enough to get you by for your first 14er attempt. When my mom took me up to do my first 14ers back in college, Grays and Tories, I borrowed almost everything from her. As I hiked more peaks over the years, I gradually collected more gear. Early on, I'd learn something new on every peak I hiked. When I got horribly sunburned at altitude, I started carrying clothing to protect my face and skin in addition to sunscreen. When my phone wouldn't have enough battery life for the whole trip, I decided I wanted to carry a power bank. When I kept struggling to keep my hands warm, I decided to start carrying a pair of mittens with me on every 14er and to keep emergency hand warmers in my first aid kit. When I started doing more technical peaks and solo climbs, I decided to invest in an SOS device. Over time, my gear changed and adapted with me as I learned new lessons and gained experience. As you embark on your own 14er journey, I encourage you to keep an open mind to the learning process around gear and to let good enough be good enough, at least to get you started. Now, gear is a really big topic to cover, so I'll be separating it into 3 videos: the hiking basics, the 10 essentials, and extras worth considering. Also, remember that I'm focusing on gear for your entry-level 14er. This video is going to focus on the hiking basics, which includes backpacks, footwear, weather-appropriate clothing, nutrition and hydration, and first aid kits. With the hiking basics, there's a lot of options and flexibility in how you choose to bring these items with you that will be adjusted based on the length of your trip, the trail conditions, the weather, and what you have available. In each of these categories, I'm going to give you some things to think about with general guidelines and different options you might consider based on your preferences, as well as discussing some budget-friendly options. With that, let's dive into the hiking basics. The first item is your backpack. What does your backpack need to do? On the most basic level, it just needs to carry the other gear that you want to bring with you on your hike. Beyond that, here are a couple other things you could think about with backpacks. First, comfort and fit. Backpacks that fit you correctly will definitely be more comfortable than packs that are too big or small for your frame. Other things that make backpacks more comfortable include having a hip belt and including padding on the straps. Not all packs come with hip belts, but I personally recommend using a pack that has one. It can take a lot of stress off of your shoulders. Some backpacks have a rigid frame for more support, and some even have a mesh backing to help keep your back from getting too sweaty. Also, knowing how to properly adjust your backpack straps really helps with comfort. A lot of backpacks, for example, have this load lift strap on the shoulders. They can make a huge difference in how your backpack load feels. In the description below, I've linked a good video for you that covers adjusting the straps on your day pack properly. Next, you want to think about the volume of your pack. Will it fit everything you need? Pack volume is measured in liters, and you can find packs from a couple of liters in size to over 100 liters for expedition bags. 22 to 36 liters is generally a good place to start for a beginner 14er day pack. When you're thinking about the size of your pack, keep in mind that it's easier to cinch down a pack that's too big than it is to cram items into a pack that's too small. Finally, it never hurts to think about the weight of your pack. Some backpacks come with tons of features covered in pockets and zippers and all sorts of straps. While many of these features can be nice to have, they are also adding weight to a pack. On the other side of the spectrum, there are ultralight bags made out of very lightweight materials that can weigh only a few ounces, but these packs have very little in the way of features. Ultralight bags generally sacrifice comfort and convenience to cut weight. They may not be designed to carry much weight either, and carrying more weight than recommended can cause damage to an ultralight bag. When choosing a pack, you'll want to balance what you want as far as features with what you're willing to carry as far as weight, but also consider the durability of the bag and if it's up to carrying all of your equipment. It's also a nice feature if a backpack comes with a rain cover, but if you're expecting to get wet and don't have one, you can also just line the inside of your backpack with a trash bag to keep the contents dry. If you're in the market for a new backpack, here's a tip for buying one that fits you well. If you can, visit a gear store in person and try on a bunch of backpacks. These types of stores generally have associates who can help you out with making sure that the right size and the straps are properly adjusted. They often have weights as well that you can put in the bag so you can better evaluate the fit. You should definitely try them on weighted if this is an option. Also, different brands tend to fit different body types, so you should try on as many different brands as you can to try to find the right fit. Now, if you don't have the perfect backpack right now and aren't in a place where you want to buy one, that's totally okay. You really can use just about any type of backpack on a hike. As long as you're not worried about the straps or zippers malfunctioning, which is really worth double checking, the most you'll be sacrificing is some comfort. So if you need to borrow your kid's school backpack for the trip, do it. I'm not going to judge you for having a Paw Patrol backpack on the trail. The next piece of gear is footwear. Everybody has different preferences with footwear, and there's really no right or wrong here, as long as it's an athletic type shoe. Just don't wear like flip-flops or Crocs. Those are definitely wrong choices. When it comes to your feet, you want your footwear to do 3 things. First, you want them to keep your feet comfortable. When you're on your feet all day long, comfort is really important. An uncomfortable shoe could have more than just your feet in pain. It could radiate pain and discomfort up through your knees, hips, and lower back. Next, they should keep your feet dry. Keeping your feet dry is important in preventing blisters and avoiding hypothermia in colder conditions. And your shoes shouldn't cause you to get blisters. Blisters can occur for a lot of reasons, such as wet feet, the shape of your individual feet, poorly fitted shoes, or new shoes that haven't been broken in. There are 2 general categories of footwear for hiking, shoes and boots, and there's a huge variety of styles within those 2 categories. It's becoming more and more popular for people to wear more lightweight, trail runner style shoes on the trail. Others prefer the stability and rigidity of a more traditional hiking shoe, sometimes with a medium or high cut ankle cuff to provide more support. Having the right fit is really important with your shoes. Too big and your feet will move around, making you much more likely to get blisters. Too small and you risk jamming your toes, which can be incredibly painful, plus you might lose some toenails. If you have issues with your toes feeling crammed into your shoes despite having the right size, you might try looking for shoes with a wide toe box. Since it's important to keep your feet as dry as possible, some people prefer a waterproof boot or shoe to protect their feet from moisture. Others prefer more breathability in their shoes. If your feet sweat a lot, waterproof fabrics can lock in that moisture, causing your feet to be wet anyway. Your feet and your preferred hiking style will dictate your choice of breathability versus waterproofing. Whatever you choose to wear, make sure it's a shoe that you've had some time to break in, as even the perfect shoe may need just a few miles put on it before it fits your foot just right. It's worth learning how to tie your hiking shoes or boots correctly as well, because the way that you tie them can either exacerbate or alleviate issues you might be having with your feet. I've linked a good video below covering how to tie your hiking boots. If you're in the market for a new hiking shoe or boot, I've linked an REI article in the description below that goes into way more detail about the types of shoes, the components, and the fit. Now, you don't need to go out and buy special hiking shoes for your first 14er. If you don't have a dedicated hiking shoe, tennis shoes or sneakers that you might already have should work fine, as long as they're in decent condition and you're comfortable wearing them for longer hikes. You'll want to check the condition of the laces and the tread. It's not ideal to have your laces break on the trail or to suffer an injury from slipping due to poor traction. So make sure to check out the bottoms of your shoes and look at the tread before taking them out on a trail. The next category of gear is weather-appropriate clothing. The purpose of our clothing on a hike is to keep us dry, protect us from the elements, and keep us at a comfortable temperature. It's hard to stay warm in cold weather if we get wet, and not just from rain. We also generate moisture in the form of sweat as we exert ourselves. If our clothes don't do well at drying us off, that can leave us exposed to hypothermia. We also need to make choices about what clothing to bring that will help us stay dry and at a comfortable temperature all throughout the day. It really takes some exploration to figure out what clothing you like to wear. Here are some general guidelines to help you get started. First, avoid cotton on any part of your body, including underwear. You've probably heard this before, but here's a little more about the why. Cotton is a fabric that retains moisture, which means if it gets wet, it stays wet. If you're wearing cotton, it's going to get wet as you start to sweat, and it's not likely to dry out. Wet cotton loses almost all of its insulating properties. That means if it gets wet, it won't keep you warm anymore. Because temperatures can vary widely on a 14er, this wet and cold fabric can be a problem. Even on warm days, the temperatures can drop rapidly if a cloud rolls in, a storm rolls through, or when the sun goes down. Wet cotton combined with cooler temperatures is a recipe for hypothermia, and anyone in your hiking party developing hypothermia can lead to an emergency situation very quickly. Because of this, hikers look for fabrics that are moisture wicking, meaning that it pulls moisture away from your skin, and that will dry quickly, as well as fabrics that can still retain some insulation properties even when wet. The most popular fabrics are synthetics like polyester or nylon, and natural fibers like wool or silk. Fun fact about wool, it's naturally odor resistant. Next, learn the art of layering. The general rule for layering is as follows. Start with a base layer, add an insulating layer, and finish with an outer shell. The base layer has the most contact with your skin and should be a moisture-wicking fabric that will pull sweat away from your body so it can dry quickly. This layer also includes your underwear. Your insulating layer has a wide variety of options. You might have a wool or fleece pullover or a puffy coat or a vest. This insulating layer can be lighter on very warm days and heavier on cooler days. You might choose to carry a couple of insulating layer options that can be worn separately or combined to give you more flexibility. Finally, your outer layer is a shell that will protect you from the elements like wind and rain. Having a shell made from a waterproof, breathable fabric is a nice feature to have so that your sweat can still evaporate to some degree while you're hiking. However, those types of fabrics are also expensive, so if you're just starting out, you'll just want to make sure you have something that will fit over your other layers and that will keep you dry if it's raining. Next, be prepared for a wide range of temperatures. The weather on these high peaks can change very quickly. Temperatures can drop rapidly and unexpectedly. If you get too cold and you can't warm up, the situation can quickly become dangerous. Personally, I think in general that it's better to have an extra layer in my pack that I didn't use as opposed to not having enough insulation. Although there are people out there who will disagree with me on that. When you're thinking about what clothing to bring, you need to be thinking about your whole body from your head all the way down to your toes. Here's a list of layering options you can think about for your whole body. Your head. You can have a hat with a brim for when it's hot and sunny and a beanie for insulation in cooler weather. A hood on any of your jackets also adds a layer. A buff is another thing you can carry that provides a lot of options for warmth, or it can be soaked down with water to help cool you down. Your hands. You can keep your hands warm using gloves on a hike. I almost always carry at least 2 pairs of gloves, a thin glove liner and a mitten. Mittens are generally warmer than gloves, while gloves will provide more dexterity. Your core. Keeping your core at a good temperature will help you keep the rest of your body comfortable. Utilize all your layers here with a base layer, insulating options, and a shell. Ladies, make sure you've got a good moisture-wicking sports bra that you like as well as part of your base layer. Your lower body. There are a lot of clothing options for your lower body. Some people like shorts, some like pants, and even others will prefer leggings. Shorts will keep you cool, but you could end up with scratches and cuts from scraping against vegetation or rocks. Pants will be warmer and protect your legs better. Convertible hiking pants are a nice compromise. These are pants that have a zip-off legs that will convert to shorts. Evaluate the material your pants are made of. Some items, like leggings or synthetic athletic pants, will quickly soak up water if it rains, but can also dry out quickly. These types of pants won't be very warm if it's a cold and windy day either. Many pants that are more intentionally designed for hiking may have a more robust fabric designed to be a little bit water resistant, and this type of fabric will also keep you warmer in the wind. You can also layer with your lower body by including a long underwear base layer and by using rain pants. If you use rain pants, a full length or 7/8 length zipper is a nice feature to have so you can put them on and remove them without having to take off your shoes. And don't forget to think about your underwear. Your feet. Hiking socks come in a variety of weights, meaning thicker and thinner. Some people prefer to use a sock liner when they hike. Sock liners are made from a material, often polyester, that wicks moisture away from your feet as they sweat. This can help in preventing blisters. If your toes rub together, they also make liners that are toe socks. It's wise to carry an extra pair of socks too. Lots of trails have creek crossings, and sometimes trails themselves might have particularly wet or muddy sections. If your feet do end up getting wet, you'll be glad you brought an extra pair of socks. Some hikers with particularly sweaty feet will intentionally bring extra socks to change into at the summit. Now, you don't necessarily need to go out and buy a brand new hiking outfit. You likely have some clothing at home that will work. Look through your closet, especially your more athletic clothing, and check the tags to see what fabric they're made of. Chances are you have some clothing made of polyester or nylon that would work as a base layer. You might already have a fleece or wool mid-layer or even a puffy coat. Hopefully you have a raincoat too. Maybe you can layer some leggings or long underwear you have with some polyester sweatpants and bring some gym shorts in case you get warm. If you're missing any of these pieces, you could probably borrow something from a family member or friend, or try your luck at a thrift store to get you by for your first peek. Just make sure to look at the tags and see what fabric is used. As tempting as it may be to wear a cotton sweatshirt or blue jeans, why take the risk? If you want to go further down the rabbit hole that is hiking clothing recommendations, there's a good REI article linked below in the description about choosing hiking clothing. The next items to discuss are food and water. These are critical items to carry with you. You need calories to sustain your massive output of energy while hiking. You need water as you can rapidly become dehydrated due to exertion, the higher elevation, and the dry air. You'll obviously need to carry some sort of sustenance on your hike, but beyond that, the options are wide and varied. Whatever you choose to bring, you'll want it to be something that ideally won't contribute to gastrointestinal upset. Here are some general guidelines about sustenance for hiking. First, don't try out a new food or supplement on your 14er hike. Try out new things at home and then on training hikes to make sure they won't upset your gut. Try to carry a variety of macronutrients, carbohydrates, fat, and protein. Your body will crave different things at different times, and you'll need all three to perform your best. Carry things that are going to sound appetizing even if you don't feel hungry. Our digestion slows at higher altitudes, which can decrease your appetite, but you still need the calories. With hydration, include something with electrolytes. You might find it surprising to hear that water alone doesn't hydrate us very well. We need electrolytes too. Electrolytes are the drivers that facilitate the absorption of water into our cells. When we hike, we sweat, and as we sweat, we lose electrolytes. If you deplete your system of electrolytes while hiking, your body can no longer move the water you drink into your cells to hydrate you. Now, lots of people immediately think of sports drinks like Gatorade or sports gels as a source of electrolytes, and that might work for you. Another option is to add an electrolyte supplement directly to your water. You'll also want to think about whether you want to carry water bottles, like Nalgene's or plastic water bottles, or use a hydration bladder. There are pros and cons to both. Hydration bladders are convenient, and you can sip while you hike. However, it's hard to monitor how much water you have left, and you can risk running out of water much earlier in your hike than you expected if you aren't paying attention, especially on hot days. If you're hiking in colder conditions, the water in the spouts and hoses can freeze, making it much more difficult to access your water. Water bottles allow you to monitor your water intake throughout a hike more easily and aren't going to freeze unless you're in crazy cold temperatures. However, water bottles are less convenient to drink out of while hiking. You may need to make a conscious effort to stop and drink along the way to avoid dehydration. You can keep them on the outside of your backpack for easier access, but unless you attach them in some way, it might be possible for them to fall out and you could lose them, losing your source of hydration. If it's going to be cold, you can also consider bringing a thermos full of a hot beverage. Some hot tea on a chilly summit can be quite enjoyable. A lot of people question how much food and water they should bring. This is going to depend mainly on the length of your hike. For the majority of the standard routes on Colorado's 14ers, 2 to 3 liters of water is often enough. Water is heavy. 1 liter weighs about 2 pounds, so that can add up quickly, and carrying more than 3 liters can really weigh you down. If you think you need more than 3 liters of water, you may want to see if there are options to filter or treat water along the way. I'll talk about options for this in the next video on the 10 essentials. As far as food, a general recommendation is to aim for 200 to 300 calories per hour. For smaller people on easier hikes, you might be on the lower end of that spectrum. For bigger people or more strenuous hikes, you'd want to be on the higher end. You can test out how much water you drink and food you eat on training hikes to try to dial it in. It's pretty easy to keep your hiking snacks budget friendly. You don't need to go out and buy fancy nutrition and sports bars, which can be really expensive. Lots of hikers make their own food, such as breakfast burritos or BLT sandwiches. And for hiking snacks, some simple trail mix, granola bars, maybe a candy bar, or even a cold slice of pizza can be exactly what you want on the trail. You really can be creative here. Finally, let's talk about the first aid kit. There are a wide variety of things people include in a first aid kit, and they can be very personal to you and your expected needs. You want your first aid kit to be able to handle injuries or issues you might have out on the trail. There are a lot of pre-made kits out there, but lots of hikers prefer to make their own. Here's a good list of basics to include. Tylenol and ibuprofen for headaches or managing pain from injuries. Band-aids in a few different sizes for small scrapes or cuts. Gauze pads and medical tape for larger scrapes or cuts. Disinfecting ointment, something like Neosporin. Blister care, because someone always ends up with one. Pen and paper for tracking times and documenting steps taken if there's an emergency situation. And any personal medications specific to you. Here's a couple other things worth considering for specific situations. Latex gloves, especially if you're going to go with a group. Compact medical emergency guide. Many store-bought kits come with some sort of compact mini guide, and these can be useful to have on hand just in case. Tums. GI distress is common at altitude, and these might alleviate some of the discomfort. Anti-diarrheal, for the same reason as the Tums. Ace bandage. Another item useful to have at least one of if you're in a group, as it can be used for a lot of different reasons, including a sprained ankle or wrist. Hand and toe warmers. I always carry these for emergencies, but you want to make sure to put fresh ones in at the start of every season if you include them. Tampons or sanitary napkin, and these aren't just for your period either. I know multiple men who include one or both of these in their kits. Tampons can also be used for something like a severe nosebleed, and pads can be used as a bandage similar to a gauze pad. They are versatile items. Pre-made kits can be expensive and often don't have exactly what you want anyway. Putting together your own first aid kit is the best way to save money on this one, as you can pick up most of the first aid basics at a pharmacy or grocery store if you don't already have some on hand. I'm going to wrap up these hiking basics with a few reminders for beginners. First, Remember that gear is highly individual and everyone has different preferences. Second, you do not have to break the bank in order to equip yourself for your first 14er hike. You don't need the newest, most cutting-edge ultralight gear. You just need something that will get the job done. If you decide that this 14er game is something you like to do, then you can consider investing in nicer equipment over time. The gear I use today is definitely not what I started out with. I'm pretty sure I even started out wearing cotton shorts and sweatshirts. Whoops. But now you know better than that. Finally, don't try out a new piece of gear on your 14er hike. You don't want to find out 3 miles into your 12-mile hike that your new backpack causes excruciating hip pain. Ask me about that experience. Or that your new shoes are turning your entire heel into a blister. Use training hikes to test out and break in your hiking basics. Ladies out there, if you want a more detailed resource on nutrition and hydration for hiking, I mentioned the book Roar by Dr. Stacy Sims in the last video on training. That book is also a really great resource for learning about how to fuel yourself for endurance exercise. So there you go. I hope this helps you in choosing your hiking basics for your first 14er hike. Remember, there are some resources listed in the description below to further your learning if you'd like. In the next video, our part 2 on gear, I'll be discussing the 10 essential systems and what those might look like on a 14er. Now, go search through your closet and see what you've got. Good luck and get out there. The trail conditions, the weather, and what you have available. Nagano. No, don't mess with it. Don't mess with it. Is this what you want? You don't have to start over now. Somebody needs some attention. This is Nagano. He has no desire to hike 14ers. You're adorable, you know that? You look very good on camera.